All right, it's a nasty rainy day today. So just going to talk to you a little bit about mountain bikes and using them on gravel. This video is really for those who want to just use their mountain bike as a gravel bike. And in our area, in the Blackwater area, actually mountain bikes are sometimes faster than gravel bikes due to the washouts, the roots, and the sand. Some of our roads are not perfect by any means. So as far as that goes, we actually have it where the mountain bike can be faster. So just wanted to show you my experiences, some of the things that I've done to convert my mountain bike into a gravel bike. So first off, what you want to do is you want to have a different wheel set. You want to have a wheel set that you can put some different tires on. And the tires that you want to put on is going to be the Schwab big ones, or also known as the G1s. Now the later version's called G1s, but they're 29 by 2.3. And these tires roll super fast. They float over sand and washboards, all that very well. And be sure to check out the bicyclerollingresistance.com website. They have a ton of tires that they test to figure out how fast they roll and how much energy it takes to roll. Now, looking at their test of the big ones, you'll see that they have a lower rolling resistance than most road tires out there. They have 11.8 watts a tire at 55 psi. And I know 55 psi is super high. I think it's closer to around 12 or 13 watts when you lower the pressure. But just in comparison, the Continental Grand Prix 5000 at 25C, that one actually rolls at 10.7 watts at 100 psi. So 11.8 to 10.7, that's not much difference in rolling resistance when it comes to those tires. Also, be sure to get the snakeskin version. These have the added protection on the sidewalls, and it helps you set them up tubeless a little better or easier. The others that are not protection sidewall will actually leak a lot of sealant out, and it takes a lot of time for them to seal up all the little holes. So the snakeskins, once again, they're only about 50 grams more a tire. They add more protection, and it makes it easier to set up. And as far as gearing goes, gravel speeds will generally be higher than riding single track. And once again, that's why, going back to the previous point with the tires, is why you're going to keep a larger tire, because a larger tire allows you to have higher gearing with a smaller cog up front. So, you may need to go with a little bit larger cog up front, chainring up front, to be able to handle those speeds, especially if you're going to have a fast group ride or the roads are really smooth and you're going to be at higher than normal speeds. So now you have to look out for this, because some mountain bikes, especially the newer boost type mountain bikes, will limit you on chainring size on the front. They usually limit you to around a 38. Some I've seen as low as a 32. 38 is really about as high as you're going to want to go. So 38 should give you plenty of speed as long as you're running those larger tires. So, because larger tires, once again, are actually gearing you up higher compared to, say, a gravel bike that has 42C tires. So that's why if you go with bigger tires, you can get away with, once again, that smaller chain ring up front. Now the next thing is actually your hand positions, to having alternate hand positions, because when you're riding on gravel, you're in a fixed position on your bike. So you may want to add some options here to be able to move your hands around. On a drop bar bike, you have the top, you have the hoods, you have the drops, you have all these different locations you can move your hands on, which help out with those longer rides. So with a flat bar bike, you're a little more limited on your hand position. So there's a few options you can do. There are bar ends, which are kind of old-fashioned, but they work great for getting your hands wider and to have leverage when you're climbing. Another company called TOPEAK, they are this little piece that can actually slide on the inside of your handlebars, puts a little, almost looks like a horn, but it's a little tab that you can actually put your thumb around that will allow you to rest your hands kind of on top of your handlebars without losing control. So it gives you a little more control there. Another company called Ergon, most people know about them, but they make great endurance products, especially handlebars. So they have a handlebar that as it gets closer to the outside, it flares out. So it gives you a little more platform for your palm. And a lot of times on flat bar bikes, if you're riding a flat bar bike without that platform there, your hands will go numb. So this kind of helps your hands to keep from going numb, gives them a little more, takes away a little bit of the pressure there. And also Ergon has a lot of integrated bar ends for some of their grips. Another thing too is actually bar wrap. On the inside of your brakes, your clamps of your brakes, that's a nice little location to be able to move your hands a little narrower so you're not so wide. So it helps out getting a little more aero too. The only problem is you don't have a grip there, it's just a handlebar. So an option you can do is you could put on another grip on the inside of that, but once again, you'd have to take off everything to get that grip on the inside. Take off your brakes and your shifter and whatever else it may be. So the easier thing is using bar wrap, and you can just take some road bar wrap and wrap it on the inside so it gives you another hand position to have a narrow hand position. Now some people have done this, I haven't really done it, but they've used like aero bars on flat bikes, and that's an option too. If you're going super long and you're going to be in an area like, you know, with dirty Kansas where it's you know, big wide open fields, a lot of wind, so you can use that too. I wouldn't recommend using it with a group of people. So another thing too, since you're riding a mountain bike, you will probably have some form of suspension. It could be a front fork if you're running a hardtail, or a full suspension bike. I use a full suspension in my area just because I like to use my bike for single track as well. That's pretty rough and rooty. So depending on your make or model, you may have a lockout. You may not have a lockout. If you have an air suspension fork or rear shock, I would just add air pressure to your shocker fork to make the suspension to be a little stiffer, so you have a better pedaling platform on those smoother roads. Now, if possible, I would recommend getting a lockout remote, or at least having a lockout style fork or rear shock. But with the lockout remote, what is beautiful about that is you can switch between having full open suspension and a full rigid bike in the flip of a switch. So on gravel roads, that's amazing, especially if you are going downhill and you're bombing it downhill and it has a lot of washouts and you know, washboard and a lot of rough areas. You can just open that suspension up and just bomb down the downhill, and then when it starts going uphill again or gets smooth again, you just hit that lever again. It locks out your suspension, makes it full rigid, and you have a perfect pedaling platform for that. All right, and the last thing that you really have to think about for gravel with a mountain bike is having extra bottles. Now, if you're on a hardtail, you may not have to worry about this too much because you do already have usually 2 bottle options on the inside of the front triangle. But if you're on a full suspension bike, you are limited. Usually most full suspension bikes will only have 1 bottle location on the front triangle. You know, several have 2 now, but there are some options for you. Wolf Tooth, they have the B-Rad system where you can mount 2 bottles on the down tube. The B-Rad system is great too because you can move the bottles up and down with the rail system, and they also have a ton of storage options. Now the next company is called LYNE Components, and they're based out of South Africa. They have what is called the Holy Rail, and this is really great for companies who only have 1 bottle cage on their front triangle. You know, companies like Scott or Giant, you know, where they had the vertical shock mount. So the Holy Rail does amazing with this. LYNE Components also has many storage options as well, very similar to Wolf Tooth, but where they beat Wolf Tooth, in my opinion, is with the Holy Rail, where you can actually put 2 bottles on the inside of the front triangle. Now, if you are limited in the front triangle and you can only put 1 bottle, or if you wanted to carry 3 bottles or 4 bottles, whatever it may be, you can use a product that TOPEAK makes, and it's called the cage mount, and it will allow you to put a water bottle on your seat post and even on your handlebar if you wanted to. I've used this in the past for longer gravel rides, and it's worked great. As far as being on the back, be sure that you have a very secure cage. If you don't have a very secure cage, when you hit your first bump, your water bottle is going to just, jettison out of there, and you're not going to have water. If you have enjoyed this video and benefited from it, be sure to hit the like button below and subscribe to the channel. Also, if there are any tips or tricks that I may have missed that you use, be sure to leave those down in the comments below. Thank you again for watching, and ride on, everybody.